Hey, everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia back with the latest episode of the Jungle Roar podcast on the CLNS Media Network. My pleasure to welcome back Jay Morrison of BengalsTalk.com, associated, of course, with SI.com, and does a great job covering all things the NFL and the Cincinnati Bengals. Jay, it is graduation time, graduation month, and I had the opportunity to send my final daughter off from commencement ceremonies at the University of Dayton. I'm breathing free. I'm breathing easier. I am a happy, happy man this Monday morning. How are you doing?
I'm sure your wallet feels different about today as
Uh,
well.
Give it about 6 to 7 months to recover and build up and come back with that same question of me. But yes, it's wonderful to have my second daughter, Emma, out into the real world. She's taking a week down to celebrate things in Daytona Beach, Florida, and then she will be back, and then we'll head out to Philadelphia and be with my other daughter for her doctorate commencement activities at Jefferson University in Philadelphia. So it's a very proud papa type of time for me. Moving on to other people who are commencing, these guys from the college football ranks into the NFL. The phase 2 of the Bengals offseason workout program is underway. And Jay, for those who may not be as familiar with the process and how it works in the offseason, there's a Bengals rookie minicamp, and I guess NFL teams have up to 3 days, and you asked this of Zach Taylor, they have up to 3 days to work with these rookies before introducing them to the rest of the veterans on the team. The Bengals only took one of those 3 days. What did you take from the answer from Zach Taylor when you asked him on Friday? Why did the Bengals really only need 1 day?
Well, what he said was he wanted them to just come in, kind of get their bearings, you break a little sweat, get acclimated, treat the weekend as more of an above the neck type of thing. He doesn't want them to go hard in a 3-day camp. And to be honest, you're going against most of these guys aren't going to make the team. The guys that
Mm-hmm.
are the undrafted free agents, the guys that are on tryouts, maybe even a draft pick or two. And so, how much can you really glean in that situation? So instead of having them maybe come into work today a little exhausted, they come in fresh, they hit the ground running with the full squad. Now, again, they're still in phase 2, so they're not doing
Right.
much in these practices this
Right.
week. We'll be down there tomorrow for the one open to the media. It's position groups, it's individual drills, but that was what Zach said. Yes, you can use all 3 days. Most teams do use all 3 days, and I'm a little unclear. I think they are allowed to do a little bit more in rookie camp than they are with the full squad this time of year. But it didn't seem like he seen the value in using all 3 of those days, and prefers to just have the guys be fresh for this first practice today with the full squad.
So what I asked Zach on Friday, Jay, was whether or not he has a message to these rookies about what different to expect at the NFL level and how you go about your football activities in the NFL versus what you do in college. Namely, you don't have the academic expectations to go along. And obviously in NIL, it's not as stringent nowadays, but still there's the academic element. There's, wanting to pursue your coursework in addition to doing your football work when you're in college. Now, your football work and your coursework, it's all melded into one big pot. And he said that he doesn't really spend that much time on the difference between the two, but I think there is a difference. I think some of these guys have to get used to having football being their end all be all. Yeah, they love playing football, but I think once you get into an NFL building, it's serious work, pretty much. I'll say 12 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. It's pretty intense, especially for rookies trying to get up to speed.
Yeah, it is. And I think, you don't need the coach telling you what to do, what's to be expected. Yeah, he does lay out some sort of expectations when he meets with them as a group, but this is about finding the guy in your position group or on your side of the ball who is the most respected guy in that locker room and just watching what he does and following his every move. And that's what this time of year is really about, is about the camaraderie and the team building, the roster building, the getting used to getting acclimated to all the new personalities. And, they're not doing much on the field. This is about getting in shape and getting to know your teammates. And that is what's really going to be important for these rookies this week and they all talk about it. Like even the veterans now, you talk about when they came in as rookies, they still have an appreciation for who the guys were that reached out to them right away on the phone and welcomed them to the team, who the guys were that kind of took them under their wing and showed them how to be professionals. And it's the same game, but it's a totally different game, I would guess you will. Not the game of football, the game of being a professional. And so it's something that you do need to learn. And some of these guys, no matter how good of a player you are, you can't exist in this league on talent alone. And so that is a big part of this week. This is going to be a huge acclimation week for these rookies.
What about Shemar Stewart? A lot of talk has been made in the last week of why Shemar Stewart and Demetrius Knight Jr., but he's a second-round pick. He's in a different category than Shemar Stewart. Want to focus on the first-round pick here, Jay, and he was on the field, as was Demetrius Knight Jr., with the other 4 draft picks on Friday at Paycor, but not under contract. He did not sign with the other 4 draft picks on Thursday. And there are reports out there, Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, reporting that the Bengals did not meet the demand or meet the expectations of what Shemar Stewart, as a first-round pick, expected in terms of his training camp bonus. And the way it works, and jump in here, Jay, if I get any of this screwed up, but the way it works, first-round picks have their first year fully guaranteed, but they do not get all of that money right away. They don't get all of that money up front. So what the Bengals and Shemar Stewart's representation are trying to work out is how much of that money does he get now? And Florio's story is that the Bengals could resolve this by giving him something that's more commensurate with what last year's 17th overall pick received. And that's where the conflict lies. That's why Shemar Stewart was in that kind of awkward situation with reporters on Friday in front of his locker saying, out of my hands, I'm not, I don't know anything about it. And to his defense, Jay, I don't think he did necessarily. I don't think he knew the ins and outs of what was going on behind the scenes. Do you believe that? Do you sense that? Yeah,
absolutely. The veterans talk about it all the time. Like I just leave that stuff to my agent. I don't get involved in all the minutia of the contract. I just wait till my agent. That's why you hire these guys, to tell you what's best for you.
And so what do you make of Shemar Stewart not being on the field? Do you think it's a big deal? I personally don't think it's a big deal. And you almost got the sense from Stewart that, look, I can't wait to be out on that field. I know I'll be on the field with my teammates eventually, blah, blah, blah. I think in a case like this, it eventually all of the numbers get worked out and everybody moves on. I don't think it's a big deal.
No, it's not. And because these contracts are slotted, so the money itself, the overall money is pretty much predetermined. And it's this type of haggling over structure and things like that. And what did he miss? He missed an hour running around and doing exercise on the field. Big deal. The other thing is, this in no way is a harbinger of things to come. It doesn't mean that this is going to be a long, drawn-out process. It's just the way things work. And guys have done this before. They've missed rookie camp. The fact that he's here, I think, is encouraging. He could have said, I'm not showing up until we get this signed. He was here doing all the other stuff, all the important stuff, all the above the next stuff that Zach Taylor wanted done this week. So that's a good sign. And I can't remember. Do you remember, because Amarius didn't sign, and he was number 18. He was his contract structure is very similar to Shemar's.
I don't think he signed right away, but
he didn't. But did he participate? That's because he didn't sign until like July, I think, last year.
Right.
And so I can't remember if he participated in the offseason or not. But, again,
I think he did. But I'd have to go back and check my notes.
The chances of getting hurt are very slim, but you get it. If you're not under contract, you don't want to take any chance at all. But again, I don't foresee this being anything that drags out and becomes a major issue. It's just, yeah, the Bengals are difficult to deal with. Everybody knows it, and Shemar is going to find that out, or has already found that out. But it's going to get worked out. Everything's going to be fine. He's going to be out there, like he said, participating with his teammates in no time.
All right, let's move on to some of the other rookie storylines that we were covering on Friday. Friday was the rookie mini camp for the Cincinnati Bengals at Paycor Stadium. And someone that stood out to me, and I'm writing about him this week, is the 6th round draft pick, Taj Brooks. Easy for me to say. Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech. The one thing that he said, your colleague, your partner in crime at BengalsTalk.com, James Rapine, asked him if he has jumped into the playbook and how is that going. And Taj Brooks said, it's going pretty well. Actually, as a matter of fact, I don't find it difficult at all. And then I asked a follow-up about why is that and why do you think you're so prepared for this level of football? And he said, probably just because I am someone who takes my craft seriously. I love getting into the ins and outs of the playbook, and I love learning about football. And what struck me, Jay, is that this kid has a very good head on his shoulders. Football means something to him, and he possesses a healthy degree of confidence. You don't want somebody who's arrogant or overconfident. But the fact that he doesn't feel awed coming into a organization where offense drives the boat, if you will, I think that's a great sign.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know how much they've given him so far. Is it, just you hit this hole on this play on this call, or, how much of it was actually getting into the pass pro element? I think that's where a lot of these guys struggle when they're young, because yeah, you can watch an iPad and see what the play was, where the blitz came from, and then say, okay, on that I need to slide here or do whatever it is that you need to do in pass pro. It's not that black and white when you get into the games. These defenses are very good at disguising and bringing pressure from where maybe you don't expect it, and stunting and twisting and doing all those things. So that part of it is kind of thinking on the fly. That will come later. But I agree with you. He's really confident. It doesn't, a lot of guys that had the kind of career he did in college might come in with a little bit of a chip, like, what do you mean I didn't go until the 6th round? And you don't get that sense with him.
No, you do not.
You get the sense that he's happy to be in the NFL. He's not complacent by any means. He's not like happy to be here guy, but he appreciates the opportunity, and you trust that he's going to work his butt off to validate the Bengals' decision. And it just kind of is a theme throughout this draft class. It's just a bunch of really good guys that seemingly, I don't want to say I don't want to make a judgment when we've only met them for a few days, but I trust the organization. They've had a lot of time to talk to these guys, and they've said the same thing, that this is high character, high football IQ, captains, all that type of thing. And I think it's going to be a win for us as media members, because these guys are all a joy to talk to.
Well, and the other thing that stuck out to me about Taj Brooks, Jay, is he knows right away what his responsibility is as a running back with the Bengals, and that's to, he said, protect a $50 million plus annual salary per year quarterback in Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Look, anybody can, memorize a script and be told, you're being drafted or you're coming in here because protecting our quarterback and giving him weapons, is a big, big deal. But the fact that he said that, and I don't know if it was unprompted or what the total context was, but the fact that he said that and acknowledged that, I think that's pretty next level stuff for a rookie.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if, maybe he had a meeting with Justin Hill, the running back coach,
30 minutes earlier.
Like, you're not getting 30 carries in this offense. Your job is to protect Joe Burrow. So, maybe he was just kind of parroting what he had already heard, but to appreciate it and acknowledge it and repeat it. Yeah, that says something.
Seth McLaughlin, he was the Remington Trophy Award winner this year for Ohio State. He got injured late in the year, right before the Indiana game, tore his Achilles, and missed the final 6 games of Ohio State's national champion. I did that for you, Jay.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Ohio State's national championship run. Fascinating figure. A lot of people had him as the highest remaining talent on the board immediately after the draft ended, meaning he would have been Mr. Irrelevant plus one, if you will. And he comes into Bengals camp as an undrafted rookie that a lot of people think he has a very, very good chance of making this team, maybe, getting a slot on the practice squad if you want to project past training camp. But I know you spoke to him. I know you spoke to him about the significance of the namesake of the trophy and meeting him. What did you gather and learn from your conversation with Seth?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was great. Again, he's not a guy, he doesn't seem like he has a chip. Now, he admitted he was very disappointed. He really thought he was going to get drafted on day 3, and that was a tough, long day to sit there and see name after name tick off, and yours isn't called. But he knows, and I think he has a bigger chip about when teams were talking to him in the pre-draft run-up, it was all about the injury. Like, they weren't asking him about his play, and I think that bothered him, and I think it's real because I'm stunned that nobody took a shot on him in the 7th round. A lot of teams had a lot of picks, and you get in the 7th round, it's crapshoot time, and a guy like that is still out there. So it makes you wonder about the medicals. How soon can he be ready? And then what kind of a dilemma is it going to create if he does come in and he's healthy by camp and he's playing really well? He almost has to make the team. That's not a guy you're going to cut at final cuts and hope to sneak back on the practice squad. If he's out there and healthy and playing well in the preseason, someone's going to claim him. So it would almost ensure that he makes the roster.
Well, Jay, I mean, last year the Bengals had 10 draft picks, and I believe all 10 made the team, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So the Bengals this year had 6 draft picks. Maybe that allows for them in their way of thinking and in Duke Tobin's roster building to say, well, if we had 10 draft picks that made the club last year, this year we have 6. Maybe we have 3 draft picks, rookie undrafted free agents that make the team. I think that's a reasonable expectation. The other thing I want to ask you about, Ted Karras's potential replacement down the road. If Seth McLaughlin is healthy, that's a viable possibility, no?
Yeah, it is. And so what you think about here is maybe he's not back and in training camp, and maybe they put him on NFI and they can stash him away for that very reason, because you have Ted Karras and Lucas Patrick are the only 2 guys on this roster with any experience playing center in an NFL game, and they both have 1 year left on their deals. I mean, Lucas was a 1-year deal when they signed him this offseason. Ted has been here for a while. This is it. Unless they sign him to another extension. Last year they dropped a 1-year extension on him in training camp. Maybe they do that again. But yeah, if they go that route and put him on NFI, and I know people might be confused. Well, it was a football injury. He got hurt playing football, but if it happened before you got to the league, he would go on NFI. It happened in a practice at Ohio State.
Great point.
And they could stash him there and just treat this like a redshirt year essentially. And it at some point in NFI, I don't know if it's week 8, week 10, you have to make the call. You have to either bring the guy up to the 53 or end his year and put him on IR. So there are mechanisms in place where they could prevent him from being plucked by another team and just keep him around, have this be a redshirt year, and say he's your de facto starter going into 2026.
Speaking with Jay Morrison of BengalsTalk.com and SI.com, colleague of and partner with James Rapine of the great site BengalsTalk.com. Jay, I want to ask you about an interesting undrafted rookie free agent, and he is part of an interesting program that the NFL started several years ago. I think OCU Manura was part of it in terms of trying to bring more access to the NFL for international players, especially in their homeland of England in the UK. And the player I'm asking you about is Dante Barrett, defensive tackle, 6'1", 275 pounds, out of Dickinson College, but by way of Birmingham, England. And your thoughts on why the Bengals dipped their toes into the international player pool, the developmental pool?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes all the sense in the world. It's a guy that you can bring in, and he's not going to count. You can have 91 players in camp, and then when you cut down to 53, then 16 on the practice squad, that's 69. You can have 70. You can keep him around all year long, and he's got freakish speed for a guy his size. You always wonder about these. I know a lot of people, you may remember back
Right.
to, I think it was 2017, 2018, and they had an international pathway player. That was back when only one division each year got a player. It was Moritz Boehringer, a tight end from Germany,
I
and
remember him. Yes.
couldn't
Yes, yes.
catch, couldn't run, had
No.
no business. And, I don't want to bang on the guy, but he just wasn't. He did not belong here. And it's like, well, you keep him around because he doesn't count against the roster, but he doesn't help you in practice at all. He doesn't give good looks. And Marvin had the infamous line when somebody asked about him in a press conference, and Marvin said, "NFL football is not for everybody." And
Yes, that's right. That is a
that's who he
famous.
said that was Mobo. And Dante's different. I think it's really interesting because I miss the Taj
Brooks.
Brooks conversation. I missed the Shemar Stewart conversation because I was back by Dante's locker. I really wanted to talk to that guy. I thought it was a really interesting story, and he's fascinating. And this is a guy that he came up kind of learning the game, had some D1 offers. I'm not sure exactly what it sounded like. Maybe he didn't qualify academically to go to those schools, so he goes to Dickinson, but the money runs out. There's D2. There's just not a lot of, there's no NIL. And so he didn't have the money to stay. And after 1 year, he's on a flight back to England, feeling like his dream has died, just crushed. But he goes back over there. He's talked into staying with the training program over there. He goes to work at a Range Rover Jaguar facility installing taillights on these cars, but he keeps his NFL dream alive. And the International Pathway program comes up, and he's a guy that's a part of it. And the Bengals are like, yeah, we'll take a chance on this guy. Why not? He's a defensive tackle, and they have
Yes.
very few defensive tackles. And now you've got BJ Hill in a boot, so he's going to miss a few weeks. So it's really interesting that you can tell it means so much to this guy. And we'll see. He's not played at this kind of level at all.
That's the thing.
Yeah, but you've got a year to work with him. You've got a year where he doesn't count against the roster. Keep him around, keep him on the practice squad, throw him in there, and hope he can account himself better than Mobo did, and develop him. And maybe next year he is an option to make this team, or at least the practice squad.
Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, Jay, but it's also a position where if energy and strength and quickness translates in the trenches.
Yeah.
Skill position like tight end, you have to run a route and you have to catch the ball. And sometimes when you play a position where it's a skill position and it involves the football more, sometimes that can get exposed more quickly and it can be a tougher run up. I think for a guy like that, he can learn what it is to just use that motor in the trenches. I don't know. Maybe I'm just spitting balls here, but
see that guy with the ball, go get him. It's as simple as that.
it is. And there are techniques to learn in the NFL level.
Sure.
But if you have that body, which he does, he has a massive body, 6'1", 275 pounds. You've already mentioned he has some freakish speed for a guy with that kind of mass. Hey, you know what? Take a chance. Really, what is there to lose? Shaquan Loyal, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Some news made here on Monday. The reports were immediately after the NFL draft ended, Jay, that the Bengals had come to terms and he was going to be one of the UDFAs. And he was not signed last week, but on Monday they finally signed him, brought him in as part of the undrafted class to join the veterans. It's significant to me because they didn't draft a safety. He was well respected at Rutgers, a Big Ten school. What can a guy like Shaquan Loyal give the Bengals in the safety room?
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out. I mean, he was, I think, honorable mention Big Ten one time at Rutgers. He was an academic All-American 3 times. or academic All Big Ten. So that puts him right in line with all these other guys. But again, it's a position. Not only did they not draft one, they didn't sign one in free agency. And it felt like both were in play, and they didn't do it.
That is something that, and I've said this in the last couple of weeks in on this podcast and other places as well. On WLW, I said it. On ESPN 1530 when I was hosting, I said it. Why in the world? The safety room needs some bolstering. Why wouldn't they address that? And I don't know if Duke didn't, and the organization didn't feel there was value out there just to bring in bodies, or if they think that down the road this summer, Justin Simmons could be a possibility. A veteran like that could be a possibility to bring him in, cheap money, and take a chance on him at that point. When you have just Jordan Battle, Geno Stone, Tyson Anderson, and Dejon Anthony in the room, which is essentially all you have. I guess you have PJ. Let me get my roster here. You have PJ Jules, and you have Jalen Key. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, the reason they didn't sign one in free agency, I think, is because everything else in free agency, they waited too long on Jamar and T, and it screwed up their whole plan and put them behind, and all these other guys went off the board. But still, you don't take one in free agency. You don't draft one. To me, says we have full faith in Geno Stone, and then you turn around and ask him to take a pay cut. It's just it's so contradictory. It makes no sense.
None.
I mean, I wonder if there's kind of a sleeper element here. I'm really interested to see how Tyson Anderson can acquit himself in this defense. He's never really gotten a chance.
No.
Terrific special teams player. Pro Bowl level. He doesn't have the name recognition yet to get that nod, but has played outstanding on special teams. I think, if I remember right, I think he has one defensive snap in his career. He lost his whole rookie year to the injury.
That's right.
He's had other injuries. He's just never really been given a chance, and he's a guy that can run. And so I wonder.
And he can tackle.
And he can tackle.
Big part of it too. But
so that's something that you wonder if he's kind of in the mix there. But yeah, it was one of the more surprising things. There was defensive tackle I thought was surprising that they didn't address in the draft, but safety really did stun me. I mean, in my mock draft, I had him taking Malachi Starks. I had him taking a safety in the very first round, and he was there, and they passed on him, and obviously went with Shemar Stewart. So it is a curious situation. Loyal, I mean, I honestly don't know that much about him. I almost when they announced the news today, I almost sarcastically tweeted out loyalty clause back in Bengals contracts, because I don't know if you guys remember that from back in the day where they had a deal where
I do.
You couldn't criticize the team or they could take your signing bonus back.
Most certainly do. That was the whole Carson Palmer. That was the genesis of that, right?
I think it was even a little bit before that. I think it was more in the 90s when that became a thing. But yeah, that we'll see. I think it's a good signing. He's a guy that has potential, and if you can bring him in here and see what he can do. It happens all the time on this team. Undrafted guys often make this 53-man roster. And there's guys here right now that Ryan Rico was not a drafted guy. Muma Njongmeta, a linebacker last year. Jackson Kirkland came here as an undrafted guy. He made the roster last year. Then he got hurt. It's happened. Vinny Ray all those years. Vontez Burke for different reasons, but this team has a history. Sure. Alex Erickson, throw him in there too. The names just keep popping in my head, but they really do. And Zach talked about it. I can't remember who asked him, but he said, we want these undrafted guys to know that they're going to have the exact same shot that the drafted guys are to make this roster. And it's the proof is there. It's happened year after year.
You have any thoughts on Joe Burrow's fashion statements all over the world and coming back here? Because I don't. I wish I could get jazzed up about this like the rest of social media does. But and I asked this question, and this is full disclosure here on the Jungle Roar Pod, that I asked the question toward the end of the press conference or media availability with Zach the other day. I said, do you have any doubt whatsoever that Joe Burrow is willing to give you 100%, 10,000% of his effort? And there were fellow reporters who said, you didn't just ask whether or not Joe Burrow's all in with his football. And I'm like, no, I asked it clearly tongue-in-cheek, But when you see all of the external forces at play, and you see all the social media, and you see all the hype these days, it I don't know, lends itself to speculation that, well, Burrow has other interests outside football and he's not 100% committed to football. He's also a human being. And clearly, I think he's shown over his 5 years in Cincinnati that he is fully committed to the Bengals. That's why I asked the question. I got, and Zach actually, I think, knew where I was going with the question. Yeah. I know you did when we talked about it back in the media workroom. Sometimes you just have to get it on the record that Zach Taylor has no problem with Joe Burrow and his extracurricular activities.
That's just it. We can say it's ridiculous for people to say it's an issue. The only way you're going to get Zach to say it is if you ask him that. He's not going to come out and say it. You have to ask him point blank. Do you have any doubt in his commitment? We know he doesn't have the doubt, but you need him to say it. You need him to put it in his words. And so, yeah, I don't have any problem with any of this. I don't get it. I've never been. Look what I'm wearing. I've never been a big fashion guy. Matter of fact, we're going to Florida later this week. I won't be in the same city as your daughter, but we'll be in the same state. And I needed to get some new clothes for the trip, and I was going to go to Kohl's. That's in Mecca, Kohl's. I didn't even trust myself to pick out the clothes. I wanted my wife to go with me and help me pick out the clothes, but I was like, I'll just do it on Monday. Well, I had a Kohl's coupon that expired yesterday, so I had to get it done yesterday. She was at a Mother's Day thing with my son and daughter, treated her to a brunch and a show. So I went and did it on my own, and that's the extent of my fashion, is going to Kohl's and picking out a few things to wear for the next year. And if I had the money and look the physique that Joe did, maybe I would be more into fashion if I was much younger. But even when I was younger,
you look great just the way you are, Joe.
I've always been a t-shirt and jeans, t-shirt. Well, we get railed on all the time for wearing flip-flops to training camp. So, the fashion is not in my wheelhouse.
We are only a couple of months away from the elephant and the U.S. flags and the sunglass shirts, the Tommy Bahamas at
the banana shirt.
The banana shirt. Exactly. Thank you. I'm struggling here at the end. But yeah, with regard to Joe Burrow, if you're on the fashion pages and not the back pages, as someone once told me, nope, Belichick. If you're on the fashion pages but not the back pages, he has no problem with you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way of looking at it. If you're not making news, and I almost said TMZ, but TMZ is definitely a newsmaker that you kind of want to avoid, because if you're on the front page of TMZ, it usually ain't good.
No.
But that's the thing about whether it's Jamar, T. Higgins, what they did after they signed their contract extensions, or it's Joe Burrow showing up at the Met Gala with other athletes, I might add, other NFL stars. They have lives to live.
Yeah.
And there's no problem with that. And I think, that's kind of Zach Taylor's attitude as well. If that's all they're doing in the offseason, and they're back here on time, and we know they're committed to the Bengals, and we know they produce for us. They're our best producers. Then no problem at all.
How many of these practices did he miss last year, and what kind of year did he have? It was a little different situation last year. It was coming off the injury,
right?
But last year coming off the injury, the wrist, and he missed a few of these days. I can't remember if he went to the Met last year and missed a day or two. I know it's not his first time at the Met. He's done this before, and it doesn't affect his play.
How many? Well, take that point just a little bit further, and we'll wrap it up here. How many practices did Jamar, T, Joe Burrow, and Trey Hendrickson miss last summer?
Yeah,
you're talking about the four most productive players on the roster last year. When the bell rings, they'll be ready, and I think most Bengal fans count on that. And I don't know. I think that's all I've got. All you got?
Yeah, I'm fired. I love this time of year. I love the schedule release. I know a lot of people think it's overblown. Yes. I really love following it and trying to figure it out.
Yes,
It's
on your very site, as a matter of fact, give you some props here. It appears that the Bengals will not be going to Madrid, so we don't have to worry about learning Spanish, which is always a good thing for me because I don't do well in multiple languages when I'm trying to do my job. So I'd rather just keep it simple. But it's up on BengalsTalk.com. Cincinnati Bengals will not be the Miami Dolphins opponent for the game in Madrid, despite what the mayor of Madrid said,
right.
however many months ago that was, 2 or 3 months ago.
Yeah, March.
In March, yes, when he leaked it, and turns out not to be correct. So anyway, I'm looking forward to May 14th. Get my fingertips ready to get on the keyboard and book all my flights, all my hotels, all my rental cars. Wednesday night's a crazy night.
It is, but it's fun, and there was a time there that the Bengals used to give us the schedule ahead of time. It was embargoed. We wouldn't say anything, and then the league was really, cracking down on that and trying to get rid of the leaks, and so that doesn't happen again. So now that we don't get it ahead of time, for a while there, I was just you get leaks from elsewhere, and you start piecing things together. It's like, well, if the Ravens are home on this day, and this day, then this. And in 2021, I almost nailed the entire schedule. I had the bye and the game at Vegas flip-flopped 1 week, but otherwise I got it completely right. But it's a lot of work sitting in front of your computer all day tracking these leaks and building a spreadsheet. I don't have the energy to do that anymore, but I do. I'm really, really intrigued, and they are leaking. They're intentionally putting out some games today and Tuesday and even Wednesday morning before the full release. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals are one of those. I think we're going to see them in prime time a lot, at least 5, maybe 6 times. And I could see, I think Amazon's even supposed to make an announcement. And that wouldn't surprise me if it's Christmas Day games. And Joe Burrow has said he would love to play on the holidays. It feels like that's kind of a perfect fit this year. I don't want to go somewhere on Christmas to cover a game, but it might be happening.
I mean, I think it's unavoidable at this point.
Yeah.
I've kind of let the lovely Deborah Ann know that eventually I'm gonna have to do that. So she'll forgive me, I'm sure. She'll certainly forgive me if I take her along and somehow get her a nice warm seat somewhere. I would love the Christmas. I'm going to go on record. Can the Christmas Day game please be in Miami? If we have to go somewhere for Christmas Day, let us go to Miami. I could live with that. Christmas in Miami has a ring to it.
It makes too much sense. It's probably going to be Buffalo.
I knew you.
And they'll probably put the Bengals in Miami in week 1. The last day of the year that you want to go to Miami to cover a game is in the heat of whatever that first week of September is. So
right.
I always expect the worst when it comes to this thing.
We'll definitely get our first look at the New Era Stadium, whatever they call that. It's not going to be ready till 2027, but we'll actually see it in the ground going up in the shadow of the existing Buffalo Stadium. I'm looking forward to that. I've kept you long enough, Jay Morrison. I very much appreciate your time. You do fabulous work. And
Thanks,
again, check out all of his work on BengalsTalk.com and SI.com. Jay Morrison does a great job, as always, covering the Cincinnati Bengals. He's Jay Morrison. My name is Trags. You can follow me on the X at Trags, Trags. Be sure to follow Jungle Roar Pod on YouTube, youtube.com/@JungleRoarPod. And also all of my work online, CLNS Cincy with a Y.com. Until next time, keep that jungle roaring.